Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We have a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, which we'll go through. But if there's anybody here live on the call that would like to ask any questions, feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, please continue to share your perspectives. I think that's one of the best things about SEO Office Hours. We have a bunch of SEOs also on the call watching, not just us. And I think the comments and the perspectives that we get are just as good, if not better, than ours. So please keep sharing that. Like every week, with me today is Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Morning, Joe.
Hello, good morning, Mike, and hello everyone for joining us today. We have got another guest audience member coming in from New Zealand, so all the way out east. So thank you for dialing in and telling us where you're coming from. So as Mike said, my name is Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs, and I run a digital remote consultancy business. We have offices in Barcelona and also in Brisbane, Australia. We help companies with their online marketing and help them to go international. We work with particularly fintech, finance, and SaaS clients. And today I'm really pleased to have as a special guest, we have Silvia and we also have Josephine. Welcome, Silvia.
Thank you, Joe. Happy to be here.
So Silvia is a content strategist and she's a web analyst based in Kenya. She is a very busy person. She's the co-founder of Witty Content Creators and also Search Savannah. I will share the links in the chat. It's Search Savannah is a community where SEOs can learn from and support one another. She had the first event back in March, and I believe there'll be a few more events coming up. She also works very closely with Lily Ray, researching and co-authoring many articles. You may have seen some of these, and I'll share them in the chat too, for Aim Save Digital. She also works with companies, SaaS companies like Moz, Uncrawl, Sitebob, Soft.io, and I'll share some of those articles. She's also a proud mom, dog mom, and a grandma. So very busy indeed. And I want to say a big also thank you and welcome to Josephine. So Josephine is an active member of the Women Tech SEO community. She just celebrated actually her 22nd birthday at WTS Fest in Berlin a couple of weeks ago. She loves Women Tech SEO. She is an active member. They all sang for her. And actually, she's done quite a lot for such a young age. She actually graduates this year from the International University of Applied Sciences, where she's studying online marketing. And she officially goes freelance next month. And so I will share the link to Josephine's LinkedIn profile and to Silvia so you can connect with both of them. Very welcome to SEO Office Hours, Josephine.
Thank you for the nice introduction.
If you guys have any questions, please just write in the chat as you have done in the past. Over to you, Mike.
Great. Okay, let's get going. So first question, sorry, this is where I try and multitask, let people in as well as ask the questions. Okay, so what's your approach to handling conflicting SEO advice or strategies, either within your team or from different sources? Who would like to kick off? Josephine,
I would like to kick off.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I think especially now it can happen even more than ever because like we all know it as SEOs, with AI on the rise, there are so many new informations, there are constantly Google updates, and I feel like when there is conflicting information, it's very important in a team to understand where your different team members have those views from. For example, sometimes there are people in your team who used to be an SEO, but now they have pivoted to a different role, and maybe they come from a good place, but their SEO information just comes from a different era, maybe a few core updates ago. Then also, I think it's very important to still be on a respectful base, but also be confident. For example, like personally right now at my company, I'm still a junior SEO manager, but I still speak up when I have information. I try to back up my sources with, good sources, industry experts, but also I could urge everyone who's in a more senior role to still also listen to the more junior members, because I feel like, especially in SEO, it's so good to have different points of view, but also really consider your industry, your specific brand, your company. SEO is not one size fits all. So maybe two things can be right at once, but only one thing is right for your specific company.
Great. Sylvia, do you have anything to add to that?
No, but I'd just like to emphasize on what she said about listening to the junior staff. A lot of the time that gets not done in companies, and because they're the ones who are really doing more of the heavy lifting, it's very important to listen to them.
Great. And what about you, Joe? Any thoughts?
I always think it's within SEO, we do all have different opinions, but I believe that if you can have the data to back up what you were saying, that really adds a lot more weight. So, and as Josephine was saying also about sometimes it is good to listen to the younger people coming up into their careers. I have found that obviously when I was a younger person, you weren't sort of appreciated as much. So just really, if you want to get your point across, I would suggest to actually back it up with data. Run some tests yourself, whether it's on your own website or on a small friend's website, and then bring that to the meeting. And also don't be afraid to challenge if someone is asking you certain things or questioning you, or if there is something that the other person is doing that's not really, I would say, making sense in your line of work. Oh, Simon's also saying try a small test as well. Yeah, it's good. Try a small test, see what works for your particular circumstances, but test all conflicting advice. Very good, Simon. And also, Monty's saying professional opinions aren't the same as just opinions. So perhaps that's maybe, Monty, what you're saying is backing up from evidence. And Dean saying, Sylvia, I love your LinkedIn link. How you have the SEO data analyst.
Thank you.
I think one of my favorite things about SEO and digital marketing is there's often not one way of doing things, and actually it's quite often that even just one person can give you conflicting advice. Hence, SEO is always saying it depends. That sort of feels like, because there are multiple ways of doing things. So I think, like Simon said, really, if you can come up with, like, explore each idea and possibly come up with different ways of testing them. I can completely agree that sometimes people that used to work in SEO or used to work in digital marketing can sort of suggest tactics and priorities that used to matter, say, I don't know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I've been in that situation quite a few times where I've had to sort of not argue, but debate basically with, say, the highest paid person in the room. That's definitely quite common. But in terms of the approach of handling it, is just having conversations. I think testing is a really good idea, and putting together, weighing up ease versus impact, stuff like that, to sort of be able to come up with something.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add on that, just on that, what Natalia was saying avoid SEO six-figure preachers and follow myth debunkers who back up what they say with Google documentation, data, and critical thinking. So yeah, you need to basically, data is key.
Great. Okay, let's go to the next question. Right. Our category pages have never fully recovered from a website migration we did years ago. One of the changes we made was removing content from an accordion, which was previously accessible via a read more button. We removed it because it was intended for search engines, not users. Would you recommend bringing it back? So obviously they had a load of content that used to be behind a read more button. They've decided to remove that content, and they've had issues with the website migration. And so, yeah, they just want to know, what would you do? Would you bring it back? Who would like to go for it? Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I'm happy to go for that. So I've just shared that in the chat here. So really, if our category pages have never really covered, and it is definitely down to website migration, I would actually encourage people to actually assess, was it just because of this removal, or was it because of something else with the website migration? Because other things can happen. Of course, I wouldn't encourage anyone to create a piece of content just for Google. If that was the case, and then there had been some updates, that site may have been affected. So I would actually encourage people to review, what has actually been the cause of that for this actually drop in this ranking, because I'm seeing that they say our category pages have not fully recovered. So it's like, I'd actually assess, okay, what were the category pages like before? What are they like now? And have there been any other impacts as well from the rest of the migration? And then what I would do as well is actually go back and see, do we want to actually expand the category pages? And if we are going to do that, we need to make sure it is for the user and not just for the actual search engine crawler. And then the other thing I would do is look and see what you're doing for the rest of the marketing. are you doing anything else that's going to be helping to improve the rankings and traffic for your page? And sorry, just a bit distracted here. I just want to make sure that anyone that's in the chat here, as Mike said, anyone that has their screen on, we're not recording, but I can also see myself. I think someone's sharing their screen as well. So if you wouldn't mind not sharing your screen, because I can just see myself as well.
Okay, I can sort that out, Joe. Sylvia or Josephine, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just second everything Joe said. Like, it's really important that you think about the user, because I understand that it's always not a good feeling when something drops, but I don't think we should do things just for Google because we think that will work out, because I don't think that's a sustainable approach. But yeah, you should definitely investigate, test it, see if there are maybe other things because sometimes on the surface it looks like it was this one specific thing, but I always encourage to look back and like try to take a step back, because sometimes when we think we know the answer, then we are quite biased in researching. So maybe try to take a step back to really properly analyze the situation.
Great. Sylvia, do you have anything to add?
No, just user first. The user comes first before search engines. Just emphasis on that.
So I would say that if you think this is something that really matters, the fact that you've taken this content off and you've seen a drop on these kind of key pages, I would be looking at the content and thinking, is there anything there that actually is relevant to users? I know in the question it says that it was mostly there for search engines, but there are also other ways of displaying information on those pages. So it doesn't have to be a drop down, and it also doesn't have to be a huge block of text. There are different formats and different ways of laying out that info. So if you genuinely think that is an issue and say you don't have content on those pages, then I'd be thinking about maybe other ways to bring some of that content back and breaking it up a bit across the page. We do a lot of research into the pages that rank really, really well for the most from, cities like London, New York, LA, and so on. And often those category pages that rank do tend to have some form of content on them. And when we work with people, say e-commerce websites, where their category pages don't rank, often I find that it's because all they have is basically product grids and nothing else. So yeah, I would definitely think about, are there kind of clever ways that you can introduce that content? I think some really good industries that do this well are things like the travel industry, where you tend to have really interesting location or category pages, and they're very creative on how they share information. So for instance, you often get things like expert advice and perspectives from people that have been to those places, as well as sort of FAQs and stuff like that. So if you do think that's an issue, I would definitely just think about, are there sort of smart ways that you can bring any information back? Joe, have we got anything in the chat?
We do. Actually, I just shared a couple of examples of category pages. One is Pretty Little Thing, their shoes category, and also boots. But yeah, if you have that other example, feel free, Mike, to share it. I do quite like how Pretty Little Thing does their category pages. It's very organized. We do have a couple of things in the chat. Dean Syke talking about suggesting looking at Google Search Console, so Google Search Console Guardian plugin, to see if it can correlate with when a core update happened. It actually has quite a good overlay, but yeah, he does agree with Sylvia as well on the whole user first, with Sylvia, Josephine, and myself. Simon's saying that one of this year's problems is that any large changes to a website are bound to happen on a day when Google makes an update of some sort that may have affected your site or rankings. Monsi's talking about indexation and ranking are more complicated right now than ever. So it's another point to add to everything else that might be affected. So yeah, back to what you were saying as well, Mike, really let's see if it has been down the migration or if it may be due to something else. John's talking about, what, Sylvia?
Sorry, I just wanted to say we recently worked with one of such a client where they did a migration, but at the same time there were updates. So there was a September helpful content, and then there was the March core update. So it was really not clear what was going on.
Okay, that's a very good point. Thank you for that. John's also talking about internal linking. This is a good thing. We didn't mention this before. So if internal link structure has changed significantly during the migration, could also have had a big impact on those category pages. So thank you. Yeah, lots of chats going on. We have actually got 2 other questions coming in from the chat as well, Mike, so we can answer that within our hour or 45 minutes.
No problem. Well, we'll go with this one and then we'll jump to those. Every week we get so many questions about AI, so we've got quite a few here. One of them is, what are the best ways to improve content with AI tools? Is anybody using AI tools for their content? Yeah.
One way or another, yeah.
Great. And what
So how I use AI, and my favorite is Gemini. There's Harper and there's Gemini. Those are two of my favorites. That said, I don't write content with them, not the body of the content. For example, for landing pages, I prompt, especially if it's a topic that I'm not very, very familiar with. So after I do the keyword research, then I do a very good prompt. And with AI, the key lies in how you prompt it. So you have to be very specific with your prompting. If you want certain keywords in your outline, you need to be very specific what you're asking your AI tool to do. And then, yeah, check the steps alongside what you have found in the subs. That's what I usually do. Then from that, I can get to know what I need to write about. I also use it for meta descriptions. Sometimes you have a mind block, or it doesn't just have that oomph that a meta or title tag should have. And that helps a lot. Same goes with subheadings for landing pages. Yeah, and then I also use it when I'm looking for stats and quotes or external links. For example, the other day I was writing a piece of content about gift cards, and for the love of me, I couldn't think of anywhere else. And yeah, AI helps with that. When you're looking for supporting stats for your article or for your landing page, it helps a lot. But that said, it's very important for me to point out, you should not over rely on them. Like for writing a full piece of content, that's a no-no. And then always fact check, because even if you get a particular stat, you still need to go and check if that's the right thing. Just don't over rely on it.
Great. Josephine, are you using AI for any of your content?
Yes, quite a bit, but also never for writing the content. I've used it now for content research, actually, just putting the articles in from the competitors and just asking what are the main points. Then also, since I work in an industry which is quite hard to understand because it's a very specific type of food for animals, I always ask, like, is there anything you wouldn't understand? Is there something an expert wouldn't like a non-expert wouldn't understand about this article? So sometimes it really helps me. I can recommend that to anyone who works in a specific industry, because we can get kind of blind to how complicated it is because we become experts after a while of writing content. So I always use it to ask, would somebody with no previous knowledge understand that? And also I've used it for finding internal linking opportunities. When I know there is like an article related, I will ask, okay, I have an article about this topic, where would a link fit in this article? And that has helped me.
Great. What about you, Joe?
I'd actually recommend inlinks, actually. They help a lot with creating content briefs. You type in a keyword and then it will actually come back with ideas. It will scrape the SERPs and it will come back with ideas of what to include in your content brief. So that's very, very good. And content briefs is a newish feature. So definitely check them out. I've shared the link in the chat.
So a tool I've been playing around with recently is Rival Flow, only in the last sort of week or so. But it's really cool. It basically, you can put websites in and it monitors your rankings for those sites, but also who then outranks you, and it will give you some suggestions about the content on their website and why they think it might be ranking over yours. And I really like that. Like, I use quite a lot of AI tools, but that's sort of just one that I'm playing around with at the moment, which, yeah, is quite smart. You know, I wouldn't take it word for word what they suggest, but I think it is quite useful for things like FAQs, or I guess parts of the page that you might not have thought about.
Yeah, there's a lot of interaction in the chat about this as well. Abera is talking about using it to improve grammar or typos. Amaka is talking about it's good to get a different point of view, you know, for a topic. Robert said that actually Claude or Sonnet 3.5 just had an update yesterday. It's a really solid tool, very thorough. LLMs are great for creating briefs and analyzing your writing, and also potentially for readability improvements or even checking for variations. Riaz is mentioning that he uses AI tools to create, improve, and optimize content. Simon's talking about Goblin tools, AI-powered listing that works out of steps for you. Goblin tools, I haven't used them before. And Boran's talking about he uses poe.com, Poe.com. Thanks, loads of tips here, everyone.
Great. Okay, I'm going to take a few of these.
Oh, well, we have just a couple of questions.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, so there was one question earlier about optimizing SEO conversions on non-branded search terms. I think maybe you might be looking in Google Search Console. I'll just actually put this in the question in the chat so everyone can see it first. Sorry, I didn't do that. So if you want to rank for non-branded search terms, obviously, I guess you're looking at Google Search Console. What I would do is I would see, analyze your pages, look and see what are you doing in terms of what is that page trying to rank for? What is the main key topic and subtopics of that page? It shouldn't always be obviously ranking for branded terms. So you may find that you're doing too many pages, or you may find that you're not being as focused as you could be to make that page rank, perhaps a category page or a product page. But open if anyone else has any other input for that question I've just shared in the chat.
Yeah, in Search Console, I always use regular expression, and if there are lots of different versions of a brand name on the query, and we'll basically split out branded and non-branded to help with that. I think SEOtesting.com is really useful as well if you're looking at sort of trying experiments across key pages to see if you can improve the rankings for those particular terms. And then obviously in analytics, making sure that you've got everything sort of tagged and have key conversions set up so you can actually see what pages are driving you those conversions. Josephine or Silvia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would add to everything that was said. When you look at conversions, I would also look at what am I defining as conversions, because sometimes when we have a few pages that are very, very far from like just the user is not in a conversion mindset at all at that point. So we sometimes also count newsletter signups and alternative things as conversions. So I would also focus on the user journey and see like, okay, does it even make sense to already go for the sale here? Or maybe can we pick the user up in a like different step?
Great. Silvia, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'd say the same. Sorry, excuse me. Just make sure you're using the right keywords for the right place in the customer journey. You don't want to capitalize on keywords, and I mean, where at what point, be sure that at the point where you're supposed to be converting is where you're at with your users, with your customers, because you don't want to be converting for a sale when somebody doesn't really understand your product yet. So just being keen on the keywords you use along that journey goes a long way in eventually,
Great. I often find pulling in data from Search Console and analytics into something like Looker Studio can be quite useful. I find you're restricted with something like Google Search Console that, for instance, with queries, you can only do contains or doesn't contain, for example, whereas you could have multiple filters on something like in Looker Studio. So if you are looking at keywords, for example, I'm working on a client's website at the moment, and for example, they've got these location pages that are quite important to them, and I have their non-branded those pages by non-branded keywords, but then I've also included certain keywords such as something that represents their product, just to make sure that I'm kind of filtering out anything that might not be commercial. Not that doesn't matter, but that's what they want to look at. So and obviously that's the type of organic traffic that they want to grow. So I definitely recommend pulling it into Looker Studio and having a play. Great.
And actually, our next question actually has already been answered. So thank you, Simon. Thanks also, Monty, for answering that one. So yeah, so that's great. Thank you very much.
What was it?
It was, would you recommend submitting a sitemap to Google every time make a change to the website, or should you just do it if there are huge changes like a new blog post or a new page created?
Great.
So,
what were the
Simon
answers?
said, no, don't do that, but submit the page URLs in Google Search Console. The sitemap will be crawled anyway regularly. If you can, at least add that last mod date in your sitemap when you change a page, and then that way it's easier. And Monty is talking about every time you make a certain number of changes or a substantial change, then yes, do that. Submit the sitemap to Google. So thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Hypothetically, if we wanted to remove a key page altogether and instead put the content on another page, which we think makes more sense logically to have one page instead of two, would that negatively affect SEO? So currently got two pages, think about consolidating it into one. and they're worried, will this impact SEO? Sylvia, are you okay to kick off on this one?
Yes, and as always with SEO, I'll start by saying it depends. What's the reason for doing that? Are the two pages competing? Is there cannibalization? So if there is cannibalization, then there's need to change. With SEO, if something is working, you don't really need to change it. But if there's cannibalization, then it's important to merge the pages. It could be because you're trying to satisfy such as intent, like what you have on this page combined with what is on that page answers a query or satisfies intent fully instead of having both of them. In that case, yes, you can merge. But then you also need to look at these two pages, which page among the two already is winning in SAPs? Which one is winning? So you want to remove the one that isn't winning and keep the one that is winning. You also, in my opinion, you also need to look at your internal links. If there are other pages linking to the page that you have removed, then you'll need to work on that. Yeah, and then just do a 301 direct from the one that you're removing to the new page. And yeah, but then in my opinion, you should consider if you lose any equity. If it's nothing major, don't mess with it. But if you do it the right way. Look at the equity, which one is ranking better. Then yeah, do a 301 direct and then keep monitoring the performance. Just make it clean and clear to search engines that you're now moving to this other one.
Great. Josephine, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with everything Sylvia said, but I would also add to her point of like really considering, because I mean, in the question, they think it logically makes sense, but also, yeah, maybe as the team, you're just a bit too close, because I've also had a few situations where some people thought it made more sense logically, but then we asked like people who are further away, and yeah, think about your user, because if both pages are ranking good independently, maybe it logically doesn't need to be in one, because sometimes it's easier for the user to have one dedicated page. So I would really reevaluate, do we really need that? Because if it's working good, then why, don't touch it.
Great. Joe, do you have any thoughts?
I just wanted to share what people are saying in the chat. Amanka's saying that when you consolidate, you should expect a drop in most cases, but over time you can track and keep tweaking based on what your competitors are doing and best for your audience. Monsi's mentioning that if it's a key page, she doesn't see why to remove it. How are you sort of measuring it? Why do you think it's key? So yeah, thanks everyone for jumping in and for your feedback. I do actually really like looking, as I said, at Google Search Console to see like how the pages are performing. Maybe if you're going to be removing a page, like ask yourself why, especially if it's important, like Monty said, and also see as well to see if there's any cannibalization of content or two pages trying to rank for the same terms. Maybe that's why that you're trying to consolidate the pages. Over to you, Mike.
Right. I guess so. They've said here it logically makes sense to move the content over, and I guess we could do with more info there, because if you're thinking from a user perspective, there are ways of making pages less prominent to users, or if you're thinking from a search engine perspective, there are ways of making pages less prominent to search engines without removing them altogether. It depends what they mean by the why. I think years ago, and I'm talking about 15 years ago, it used to be quite common to have different pages for different keywords. So for example, if you were doing something like, I don't know, stag do's, for example, you might have had a stag weekends page, a stag do page, you might have a stag do ideas page, a stag party page, a stag night page, and so on. And effectively, they're all kind of the same thing. And so it's quite common in that situation to kind of bring them all together, just because Google now understands that those things all mean the same thing. So I guess it depends on why you think it logically makes sense to bring it together. If it's down to keywords and the fact that you think those pages are competing with one another, and it's better to have one stronger page than having two page kind of competing and diluting each other's impact, then I would 100% sort of look at bringing them together. I agree with Monty. I think I wouldn't necessarily remove altogether, though, if it's working for you, and what Sylvia said, if it's there. But if it makes sense if you feel like they're competing with one another, I would bring them together. Anything in the chat, Joe?
Great. No, nothing else for that one, but I just wanted to say here that thanks everyone for joining us on the show today live, and thanks everyone that's watching us, not live, watching us back. If anybody would like to be a special guest like Silvia and Josephine today, or if anyone that's watching us not live would like to actually be an audience member, please do sign up on Good Signals /SEO office hours. So SEO office hour. Anyway, I shared the link in the chat and we'll be sharing in the transcription too. So yeah, we've got very international office hours today and loads of people joining us. So, which is great. We're growing every week.
Maybe I should shorten that URL to make it easier to say. Okay, so next question, another AI one, which is, how do you predict AI influencing SEO strategies, and how do you foresee AI influencing SEO strategies? So they were two different questions, but I've just thought they're the same thing. Josephine, how do you feel about kicking off?
With pleasure. So I think, interestingly enough, I think that AI will actually force us SEOs to become more human again, because AI can only create what's already there, like take the information that's already there. And actually, for many years, I think a lot of SEO strategy when it comes to content has been the same, because a lot of SEOs are taught, look at your top competitor pages and then just cover everything they cover. And I feel like, and it has worked, it has been successful for many companies. And I feel like now with AI making it so easy to already do that, and then we also have AI overviews which already give these like key informations, I think it will force us to be more human again, focus on actual expertise again. EEAT has always been big, but now bring actual experts. If you write about dogs, bring an actual vet, and also to bring actual experience to focus on, because AI can give you everything. It can give you what are the benefits, what are the downsides, but what AI can't replicate is how I felt while going vegan, like how I managed to do that, how I do, I don't know, my tax statements. So I think it is good to look at the human side again, because I think we need to work with AI and not compete against it, because it's inevitable that it will change the strategy. But I would always take also a user-centric approach, look at our users, what do they want, what does the audience want, and yeah, just become more human again.
Great. What about you, Sylvia? Any thoughts on how AI will be influencing future SEO strategies?
No.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I think with AI, I mean, we need to look at it that, computers, machines have helped us do a lot of extra things. Even before we had things, in our keyword tools that would help us to generate long tail keywords or variations in keywords. So it has saved us time. So in terms of how does it influence SEO strategies, it would be that you'd need to incorporate that into your SEO strategy. What can you make the most of it? So for example, we talked about content briefs before and how inlinks helps you to be able to write, brings up other ideas to write into content briefs. It also brings in the keywords as well. That wasn't available a long time ago. So it helps you to save time, and then you can actually focus on adding the sort of expert opinion, adding the human element to your content. Simon saying about, well, I think this is a bit of a joke, Simon, you always joke. I will be writing your competitor strategy any day now. Happily watch their sites tank in the rankings. Walid's talking about, since AI also takes content through the web, what are the other few resources we can research the content? Oh, that is a question. Sorry, we'll come back to you on that one, Walid. Amanka's talking about AI as a welcome development. It certainly makes them a better SEO and can see it as being part of the SEO strategy. But manual work is not going away, because we as SEOs evolve quickly as AI evolves. That's a very good point, actually. There are some things that AI will help us, but we still need to be doing some of the manual SEO. Preeti's wishing that AI would do your dishes and make food for her so that she can do more work. No, Preeti, you want AI to do dishes, make food, clean your house so that you can relax, not do more work.
Great, awesome. Okay, next question. Unless you want to do a question in the chat, Joe.
Yeah, actually, this is just one from Walid. He said, since AI also takes content through the web, what other few resources can we use to research the content? I think I'm not quite sure, maybe Walid, you can expand on that question, but if from what you're saying now about like, oh, how can we research what content is there? I would say for a particular topic, you could look at your competitors. I do quite like some of the tools used. They have a competitive gap analysis, and you can see where they're ranking and where you're ranking and where there is an overlap and not an overlap. And that gives you more ideas for content. Another one I would use if you want to find out sort of what people are talking about is maybe have a topic in mind, and you can use Google Trends and see if there's been any change. And also you can start typing the word into Google, not click enter, and it will come up with other suggestions too. Dean's talking about head to the local library. No, Dean, there is no local library. Well, there might be, but that library might be a bit old. So, Walid, if you have anything else that you want to expand on about that question, please do write it in the chat.
Great. Okay, next question. Our product URLs currently utilize product IDs represented as numbers rather than descriptive product names. This practice has been in place for about 4 years. I'm wondering whether this poses an issue for search engine optimization. Should we maintain the status quo or consider transitioning the URLs that incorporate product names? Any thoughts on this, Joe? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've been in this situation where, yeah, we've had a product ID, and obviously it's not ideal, really. You want to have like the product names, and because it's also easier for users to remember too, rather than product ID equals 54321. So this one I would actually, this looks like it's a sort of a URL rewrite. You need to sort of assess how many product URLs you have, how much time it would take to actually do this. Will it make a big impact or not? Because it is quite resource heavy depending on how many products you actually have. Yeah, you need to actually look and see how much time this is actually going to take you before you go ahead and do it, because it can end up taking, just outside of the whole SEO aspect, it can just end up taking you a lot of time, which would divert your attention away from other marketing activities.
Yeah, I've worked on a few sites that have instead of names, but often the subfolders have category names and things like that. So if it's a big site with lots of different product IDs, often the URLs do, with those category subfolders, often include some form of description in some way. But personally, I think if it's been there for 4 years, I think there are probably some other things that you could focus on rather than going through, if it's a huge website, the pain of changing all of your URLs. Silvia, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was saying Google's URL structure design best practices actually recommends adding descriptive words in URL path so that they can better understand the page.
Great. Okay. And Josephine, have you got any thoughts?
Yes, I would definitely agree with like the thing Joe said about like resources, because I think it's important in marketing, but also especially in SEO, there are many things that we could do that would be good, but it's really important to look at the resources you have, how much time would that take, and are there things that would be even better that we could do, especially if you have a small team or a very big site. It's important to look, okay, are there other areas where we could improve a lot? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a few things in the chat as well, actually. Thank you for everyone interacting and adding your insights. So Chris is saying, can you not make a glossary page, no index, with the name and SKU ID codes that link to the relevant pages? John's talking about when you want to do URL changes, it may be worth actually testing a portion of the pages before overhauling the entire site. Very good point. Amaka's also talking about test a few pages too. And we do have another question. I just noticed one around Agile methodologies that was in the chat earlier. So we could probably look to answer that as well sometime.
Go for it. Feel free to ask that one.
Okay, just highlighting here now. So question 9, we're getting through quite a few today. How can Agile methodologies be effectively adapted for SEO project management to enhance collaboration and efficiency among cross-functional teams? And I was just laughing because Simon's right in there. Agile, Pagile. So was that an answer? No, I'm making fun of it. So what do you think, Simon? Doesn't know. I don't know actually either right now, so I'd have to look into that. Yeah, that's a very good question, which I will come back to, or I can open it to the floor for everyone else. Preeti's talking about Agile's a new word for me. Josephine, yes.
Yeah, here finally all my university stuff comes into
Oh.
play. Yeah, I think actually like agile methodologies are very good for, can I see that? Yeah, the question again, for SEO product management, because one key thing about like agile methodology is that you have rather smaller teams and also that you keep checking in. And I think that's really important. Because with something like SEO, you can't have too many opinions at once, and it's better to focus and also readjust a lot, because SEO is definitely, you need to adjust it to constant updates. You also need to adjust it to what works for your specific brand. So I think you can stay agile. Don't be shy to readjust, and yeah, that's good.
Oh, thank you.
Great, super. We actually had a similar question, which was just around how do you structure your SEO team, or how should I structure my SEO team and processes and so on. Does anybody here work in a team or with a team of people? And what does that team look like? No, I guess
we're all solo entrepreneurs here.
yeah, that's true. So
I work in a team, but we're just two. So we are two. That I don't think that really counts for a team.
well, I've historically built, I tend to build teams around projects that we're working on. And so it really depends on what area you intend to sort of, I don't know, specialize in. So this could be, I don't know if you're an agency or if you're in-house, and if you're going to be doing more kind of digital PR campaigns, or if it's going to be more of an e-commerce website. Like if it's more focused on just evolving and building a really nice website, you might want to think more about content design, product development, those kind of people. Whereas if you're more agency based, it's really hard. I think give us more context and then we might be able to help with that one. But yeah, I think it depends on what you want to achieve and build a team that way. Okay.
We've actually got quite a few. Sorry, we've got a few interactions in chat here, actually. So yes, how do you structure your SEO teams? Okay, so Chris is saying that he uses a team of 4, and we lean on each other's strengths for speed and build on skills when time allows for it. Very good point. Natalie is saying that you generally play to everyone's strengths in a team. This principle worked in her old corporate role. Simon said he built an SEO team years ago, flat structure, had different specialities, so tech, data, content, etc. And each of them worked on different issues each week. Yeah, so that's actually quite good. And always adapt to your resources. And actually, we've got quite a lot of interaction as well. Back to that question 9, how can agile methodologies be effectively adapted for your SEO project management? So yeah, thanks everyone. Loads of answers here.
Awesome. One resource actually for anything to do with team management is The New Leader by Paddy Mugan. He has a really good newsletter that helps managers and new managers and also helps people that have managed for a long time. There's quite a few things that I've read on there that I thought have been really useful.
Yeah, and a playbook too. You can do the course. That's great.
I didn't realize there was a course. Awesome. So yeah, I definitely recommend that, the New Leader. Next question is, we probably fit in a few more. Another AI one. How can AI be leveraged to improve keyword research and analysis? We kind of covered this a little bit, but is anybody using AI purely for keyword research? Josephine, I can see your hands up. Go for it.
Yeah, I recently started because I had quite a big keyword research, because I recently did keyword research for TikTok and I started from scratch. So it was quite a lot, and I used AI for clustering. I did have to readjust a few times because it's a very niche topic, but it's very good for clustering. Also, it's good for, when you have keywords that are not fitting. For example, like when words kind of sound the same, it's good to just filter out the ones that don't make sense to your specific context. And then also sometimes when you don't know where to start, to just ask AI, like, okay, so this is my product, this is my service, which other names could people use for it? Because with a lot of products that are not straightforward, like a sneaker maybe, there are people who look with different words, especially if it's maybe also like a very professional service. Maybe people don't always know the proper term. So it's worth asking AI for, hey, what other words could people use for this?
Great. Sylvia, what about you? Are you using AI for keyword research at all?
Yes, I am. I use it to look at what focus keywords my clients' competitors are using. So say I feed in a website and then just ask, which are the focus keywords, or a number of URLs, and then just ask, which are the focus keywords? So that from that, I can know what my competitor is using, and then combine that with the keyword research I'm doing with other tools and find what else I can add. I also use it for something very interesting. I feed in customer reviews and social media data. Yeah, and then that helps me find out Are people excited about this brand? Is there a particular pain point that they have? And then if it's something positive, I build on that. If it's something negative, then that means that's a gap that needs to be filled. Those are some of the uses.
Great. And what about you, Joe?
I don't have anything else to add, actually. Waleed is saying that keyword research through AI is new to him, but he will be trying it. And yeah, as Simon's saying, he uses keyword insights that uses AI to cluster topics and key phrases. Very useful. And Dean's just emphasizing what you mentioned, well, saying to you, Sylvia, good point, Sylvia. It's good for sentiment analysis. So lots of things here.
Great. Okay. How are we doing for time? Yes, we can fit in
7 minutes. We've done so many questions.
Okay, this is for an e-commerce website. If I move the breadcrumbs to the bottom of the page or remove them completely, will that impact my rankings? So if this was me, I'd probably test it. I think John mentioned earlier on a question before about testing something. If you really want to move them, then I would just test that out on a section of the page using something like SEOtesting.com. Joe, have you got any thoughts?
No, I just don't know why you'd want to move to the bottom of the page, because people like to have it at the top so that they can see, where they are in the site.
Yeah, it does. They are quite handy, right, for getting back to where you were and just sort of seeing what section of the website you're in. Josephine or Sylvia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would definitely add to what Joe said. Oh, sorry. It's really important to think about why
No,
are we
that's okay.
moving
Go
this.
ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's really important to think about why are we moving it, because if it's a space issue, maybe you can just refigure it. Because I think breadcrumbs at the bottom are always quite user unfriendly, because we are also because the majority of what we have to always think, what is the standard, because the majority of sites have them on the top. So I think it's important that we consider that our users not only use our site, they use a lot of sites. And if they're used to always seeing them at the top, they will probably not even go to the bottom because they won't expect them there. So I think, yeah, if you really want to do it, you should definitely test it before just flat out removing something.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that it'll also be a good thing to look at what the effect will be on the traffic to the breadcrumb pages. That's another thing you want to look at before you either remove them or switch them up.
Great. Joe, I think there's some comments in the chat.
Yeah, we're having any little jokes. She says she uses breadcrumbs to coat food before frying. I'm like saying put the breadcrumbs in both the top and bottom. And Chris is saying breadcrumbs should be at the top, or why use them? Maybe get data from your heat map. Amaka saying if your users are not engaging at the bottom of the page, you rob them of navigating your website from the top. And John saying, exactly, what percentage of your users scrolls to the bottom of the page anyway? Yeah, so I think back to the whole, ask yourself, why are you doing it? And if you really want to, why don't you just do a test first before you make it changes?
Although one thing, I've just started working on a site, and something that I notice is all their breadcrumbs don't seem to work. They just go to 404 pages. So also just make sure if you've got breadcrumbs there that they actually work, because that can be quite frustrating for users. Great. I think we'll go to our final question, which is a regular question, which is basically, what are you most excited about from an SEO perspective? Sylvia, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO?
I'm excited about, I don't know if I'd call it excited. I'm excited about the recent changes. There's really been a lot going on with the core updates. Right now, I'm looking at how the search has switched from very many keywords. The intent has switched from product review and other sites to e-commerce. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next and how we're going to navigate, because I believe there's another core update coming up soon, or rather an update. So I'm just excited to see what that brings and how it changes search.
Great. Josephine, what about you? What are you most excited about at the moment?
I'm most excited about how AI is going to force us to change, because I feel like in some ways SEO has become, it took the humanity out of the content writer. So I'm really excited that now we can prove again that we are human and what makes us human, because AI can do the rest. AI can do the heavy lifting, the summary. So it's us again who are like, okay, this is what we do. We are experts. So I really like that.
Great. What about you, Joe? What are you most excited about?
I'm always excited about events. So we had our Search London on Monday in person. We had a great turnout for the summer party. We had obviously good signals doing the cupcakes and Turn Global too. And also very excited about our office hours. Today is our 30th SEO office hours. Last week we had 35 live attendees, including guests and hosts. And today I believe we have 40. And also next week I'm very excited that we're going to have Natalia, who's also here in the audience today, co-hosting. I will not be able to attend next week, so Natalia will be here. And Natalia, there she is. Hi, Natalia. And she was our special guest before. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. But I'll pass back to Mike to say what is he most excited about.
Oh, I very rarely answer this question. I'm excited about everything. I just love everything is always changing. And every week, like we do a newsletter every week and I kind of curate what goes in there. And I just love it that every week there's something that's happening there, whether it's good, bad, it's certainly interesting. And it's fascinating to hear everybody sharing about their experiences and their websites and learning from everybody. So yeah, I think just the constant change is really, really fascinating. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you everybody for attending. Joe, thank you for co-hosting. Thank you to those that submitted questions, and thank you to those that are watching also on YouTube afterwards. We'll be back next week with another SEO Office Hours. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Thank you.